Lara leaned back in her worn-out chair, staring at the peeling paint on her one-room apartment ceiling. The small space was cluttered with knockoff designer bags and boxes from online shopping sprees she could barely afford. To her friends and onlookers, she was a young woman of privilege, effortlessly mingling with the elite of Lagos thanks to her strategic social media posts and carefully curated outfits. But in truth, her reality was starkly different. Her apartment was in a neighborhood that screamed poverty, and her life was a balancing act of debt and illusions. Still, she couldn't bear the thought of anyone discovering that she was, in fact, just scraping by. She felt like she needed to live this way, to pretend that she belonged among the wealthy, even if it meant dating men solely for what they could offer her. Lara had mastered the art of living a double life. By day, she lived in a modest one-room apartment, barely scraping by. But by night, she transformed into a different woman, a wealthy socialite, dressed in the latest designer clothes she either borrowed or bought on credit. To anyone watching, she appeared to be a young woman of privilege, effortlessly mingling in circles of the Lagos elite. Her primary hobby was dating wealthy men, using them to fund her lifestyle. She knew how to act charming and sophisticated, and that was enough to capture their attention. But once they discovered she wasn't the wealthy woman she claimed to be, they quickly lost interest. Lara met Kunle at a high-end club. He was tall, dressed in a sleek designer suit, and seemed to exude money and confidence. He had bought her drinks, introduced her to his friends, and taken her on dates to the most exclusive places in the city. To Lara, Kunle was a dream come true. Handsome, rich, and willing to spend his money on her. But Kunle was no fool. As their relationship progressed, he began to notice that she never offered to pay for anything, not even a small coffee. His suspicions grew when he noticed that Lara seemed to need financial assistance regularly, with excuses ranging from helping a sick family member to investing in a business venture. One evening, over dinner at an upscale restaurant, Kunle looked at her with a sly grin. "So, Lara," he began casually, "what's your business about again?" "You know, the one you needed that loan for," Lara stammered, unprepared for his question. "Oh, well, it's, fashion-related. I mean, I'm starting an online boutique." She trailed off, her cheeks flushed. Kunle chuckled and shook his head. "Lara, let's stop pretending. I know why you're here. You wanted a rich man to take care of you, but it's clear that's all you're interested in." With that, he walked out, leaving her sitting alone at the table, humiliated. Lara swore she wouldn't let her guard down again, so when she met Tunde, she did her own research first. Tunde had all the trappings of wealth, a luxury car, designer clothes, and a charming smile. Lara believed she had hit the jackpot. She flaunted their relationship to her friends, calling him the one, confident that he would finally give her the life of comfort she craved. But one evening, when she decided to surprise him by visiting his home unannounced, her dream crumbled. Instead of the mansion she imagined, she found a cramped, run-down apartment with peeling wallpaper and minimal furniture. She stared at him in shock, unable to believe he had fooled her. Tunde, caught off guard, tried to laugh it off. "Babe, I was going to explain." "Explain? You lied to me!" she screamed, her voice echoing in the small apartment. "You're just a broke, pathetic liar." Without another word, she stormed out, vowing never to be deceived by a broke man again. After her humiliating experience with Kunle and the disastrous encounter with Tunde, Lara vowed to herself that she would get it right next time. She was determined not to be the one fooled. She sharpened her charm, perfected her wardrobe, and even found a way to make herself look like a wealthy socialite Despite her limited finances, her favorite tactic was borrowing luxury cars from a local mechanic, Mr. Al-Haji, who she befriended with a mix of charm and calculated flattery. Mr. Al-Haji found her amusing and, for a small fee, would let her use one of his high-end cars for a day or two. Each time Lara would drive one of those borrowed cars, she would post pictures on social media, tagging exclusive locations and adding hashtags that suggested a life of luxury. She crafted her online presence with care, using these photos to build an illusion of wealth. This facade attracted men who were fascinated by her supposed success, men who wanted to be seen with a woman of high social status. But Lara's obsession with appearances and her quest for wealth often led her down a destructive path. Soon after her breakup with Tunde, Lara met Chuka at an upscale lounge. Chuka was charming, intelligent, and seemed to have the world at his feet. He wore designer clothes and had the latest gadgets, his lavish lifestyle evident in every detail. He drove a sleek car, had a penthouse apartment, and regularly flashed wads of cash. Lara thought she had struck gold. Here was a man who could give her everything she wanted, and she quickly latched onto him, playing the role of a high society woman. Chuka seemed to enjoy her company and indulged her in her dreams of luxury. He took her on shopping sprees, expensive dinners, and glamorous outings. But there was a darker side to him that Lara soon discovered. Chuka was a fraudster, a Yahoo boy, as they were commonly known in Nigeria. He and his friends engaged in online scams, deceiving foreign victims to amass their wealth. Lara tried to ignore the signs, convincing herself that as long as he treated her well, it didn't matter how he earned his money. She turned a blind eye to his questionable phone calls, the constant cash flow, and the shady friends who visited his apartment. But her ignorance came at a cost. One fateful morning, she woke up to banging on Chuka's door. Before she knew it, the police had stormed the apartment, arresting both Chuka and Lara. She was horrified, handcuffed, and treated like a criminal as they were taken to the police station. Chuka tried to reassure her, but Lara was terrified. She had no idea what awaited her, only that her dream of wealth had led her into a nightmare. Lara spent over a week in jail, questioned repeatedly by officers who suspected her involvement in Chuka's schemes. She pleaded her innocence, insisting that she knew nothing about his activities, but the authorities were unconvinced. It was only after her family managed to arrange bail that she was released, shaken, and humiliated. Her reputation was tarnished, her dreams of marrying rich shattered. But instead of learning her lesson, Lara convinced herself that she had simply chosen the wrong man. Despite her near escape from a life of crime with Chuka, Lara's hunger for wealth remained unquenchable. She met Femi at a high-end fashion event, a man known in social circles for his wealth and influence. Femi was strikingly handsome, with a charismatic smile and a magnetic aura. He had connections with high-profile people and was rumored to be involved in several lucrative businesses. To Lara, he was a dream come true. Femi lavished her with gifts, took her to the finest restaurants, and introduced her to influential people. For the first time, Lara felt like she was finally living the life she had always wanted. She started to believe that Femi could be the one to rescue her from her financial struggles. But behind Femi's charming exterior lay a sinister secret. Unbeknownst to her, Femi was involved in ritual practices. He believed that sacrificing a loved one could bring him more wealth and power. He had carefully selected Lara, seeing in her the desperation and naivety he needed for his scheme. To him, she was perfect, vulnerable, easily manipulated, and hungry for luxury. One evening, Femi invited Lara to his private villa outside the city. He had planned an intimate night, complete with a romantic dinner, Lara was excited, thinking that he might propose or at least take their relationship to a more serious level. But as the night progressed, she noticed that something felt off. Femi was acting strange, his gaze cold and calculating, his touch uncharacteristically tense. As the night wore on, Lara began to feel uneasy. She excused herself and went to the bathroom, where she overheard Femi on the phone, talking in hushed tones. "Yes, she's here. Everything is in place. We'll proceed tonight." Fear gripped her as she realized the implications of his words. Her heart pounded as she pieced together the disturbing truth. Femi intended to use her for a ritual sacrifice. Desperation surged through her, and she knew she had to escape. Pretending to feel unwell, she told Femi she needed fresh air. As he watched her warily, she inched her way toward the door, then bolted, running into the night. Lara fled down the dirt road, terrified and breathless. She didn't stop until she found a passing vehicle and begged for a ride. The driver, seeing her panic, took pity on her and drove her back to the city. Lara never looked back. She deleted Femi's number, blocked him on social media, and cut all ties. But the fear lingered, a constant reminder of how close she had come to losing her life in pursuit of wealth. Still reeling from her harrowing experience with Femi, Lara took a break from dating. But her resolve didn't last long. Soon she found herself once again caught up in the allure of wealth and status. She met Olumide, a wealthy entrepreneur, at a luxury car showroom where she had gone to browse high-end cars, hoping to catch the attention of a rich suitor. Olumide was charismatic and well-dressed, with an air of sophistication that instantly attracted her. Unlike the others, he seemed genuinely interested in her, asking questions about her life, her interests, and her dreams. For the first time, Lara felt that maybe this relationship would be different. Olumide showered her with attention and made her feel special, taking her to exclusive events and introducing her to his circle of influential friends. But as the relationship progressed, Olumide's true colors began to emerge. He had a quick temper, often lashing out over the smallest things. The first time he yelled at her was during dinner at a restaurant, when she asked for a wine list he hadn't approved of. He snapped, his tone icy and filled with contempt. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? Acting like you're some spoiled brat. Know your place." Lara was stunned, but she brushed it off, telling herself that it was just a momentary lapse. But the incidents continued. Olumide became increasingly controlling, criticizing her every move, her clothes, even her choice of words. He demanded to know where she was at all times, and when she was late to meet him one evening, he slapped her, leaving her shaken and in tears. Despite the abuse, Lara stayed, convincing herself that Olumide's wealth and status made it worth the pain. She thought that once they were married, he would soften, that his love would grow, and that she would finally have the life she desired. But Olumide's temper only grew worse, and she became trapped in a cycle of fear and dependency. Their relationship finally ended one night when Olumide's anger escalated beyond words. During a heated argument, he grabbed her arm, his grip so tight it left bruises, and screamed in her face. In that moment, Lara saw her future, a life filled with violence and submission, a life where her dreams of luxury came at the cost of her dignity and safety. Gathering the last shreds of her courage, Lara broke free from Olumide's grip and walked out. She didn't look back, her heart heavy with both relief and despair. She was exhausted, scarred by the emotional and physical pain she had endured. Each failed relationship had left her feeling more empty and broken. But even then she clung to her belief that wealth was the key to her happiness. Lara's pretense became a prison, trapping her in a cycle of deception and disappointment. She was willing to endure emotional abuse, control, and manipulation as long as there was a chance of gaining financial security. Her desire for a luxurious lifestyle blinded her to the toll it was taking on her spirit and self-worth. Every time she drove one of Mr. Alhaji's borrowed cars, every time she put on a designer dress she couldn't afford, she felt a surge of pride. But it was a fleeting pride, masking a deep-seated insecurity and fear that she would never truly belong in the world of wealth she so desperately desired. Each failed relationship chipped away at her confidence, yet she stubbornly refused to change her ways. Her life became a series of failed attempts, each one ending in heartbreak, shame, and regret. Friends and family tried to advise her, suggesting she find a job or pursue her own dreams. But Lara dismissed them, convinced that her only path to happiness was through wealth. She continued chasing a mirage, unaware that the life she sought was slipping further away with every lie she told. As the years passed, Lara found herself increasingly isolated. Her friends grew tired of her obsession with wealth, her superficial pursuits, and her unwillingness to live authentically. The men she chased left her feeling hollow and used, each encounter a painful reminder of the life she could never attain. Yet, the thought of changing, of letting go of her dream of wealth, was too painful to consider. Her funds were dwindling, her designer wardrobe lost its luster, and she could barely keep up with her rent. Desperate for money, she began looking for a job. But with no work experience and only a high school diploma, her search was frustrating and fruitless. One afternoon, while standing outside a cafe, she met Dapo. He was gentle-looking, with a soft smile and kind eyes. But his clothes were plain, his shoes worn, and Lara immediately pegged him as just another broke guy. Dapo, however, was captivated by her. Despite her aloofness, he saw something in her, a vulnerability hidden behind her proud exterior. He offered her small talk, trying to get to know her. But Lara was cold and dismissive, rolling her eyes at his gentle attempts at conversation. "I'm not interested in broke men," she said curtly, turning to leave. But Dapo wasn't discouraged. Over the following days, he continued to cross paths with her, always offering a smile and a warm greeting. It was annoying to her, yet somehow, his presence became familiar. One day, seeing her frustration with her job search, he casually mentioned, "You know, there's an opening at Lara's place. They pay well, over 500,000 naira for the night shift." Lara's eyes widened. 500,000? She repeated, her tone shifting from disinterest to curiosity. "Yes," Dapo nodded. "I think you'd be a great fit. Just tell them I recommended you." She agreed, albeit reluctantly, deciding to take the job until something better came along. Unbeknownst to her, Dapo was the owner of Lara's place. He had ensured she would be hired, curious to see how she would handle herself. Lara's first weeks at Lara's place were exhausting. She despised the long hours and resented serving others. But the pay was good, and she began to tolerate it, especially when she noticed the wealthy clientele. One evening, a man named Emeka walked in, dripping with wealth and confidence. He wore a tailored suit, gold wristwatch, and a faint, self-assured smile. He noticed Lara's striking looks and started a conversation, asking her about herself. Lara's face lit up. Here was a man who could potentially fund her dreams. She laughed at his jokes, subtly hinting at her expensive tastes, and imagined a future where she wouldn't have to work as a waitress anymore. From across the room, Dapo observed the interaction. He felt a pang of disappointment, seeing how quickly Lara's demeanor changed around wealth. Yet, he tried to remind himself that she was a work in progress. Unable to watch anymore, Dapo called Lara over to his table. She frowned, glancing back at Amika, annoyed at being interrupted. "What do you want, Dapo?" she asked, her tone sharp. "I just wanted to talk," he replied gently. "Lara, remember you're here to work, not to flirt with customers." Her eyes narrowed, and she clenched her fists. "Who are you to tell me what to do? You're just a customer here, not my boss." Dapo's face darkened, but he remained calm. "I'm just trying to look out for you, Lara." She scoffed, her frustration reaching its peak. In a burst of anger, she grabbed the coffee pot on his table and poured its contents over him. "Maybe next time you'll mind your own business," she snapped. The restaurant fell silent as staff and patrons turned to watch the scene. The manager rushed over, his face pale with horror. "Mr. Dapo, sir, I'm so sorry," he stammered, bowing respectfully. Lara's heart raced. "Mr. Dapo, sir?" she repeated, confusion flickering in her eyes. The senior waiter whispered urgently, "Are you mad, Lara? He's the owner, the man who hired you." Her blood turned cold. She looked at Dapo, his calm, disappointed expression piercing through her anger. She tried to stammer an apology, but words failed her. Dapo stood slowly, wiping coffee from his face. "Lara, I gave you this opportunity because I believed in you. I thought you could learn something here, but it seems I was wrong." The manager turned to her, his face hard. "You're fired, Lara. Leave immediately." She felt her knees weaken as she tried to plead. "Please, I didn't know. I'm sorry." Dapo raised his hand, silencing her. "Lara, I hope one day you'll realize that there's more to life than chasing wealth and status. I wish you well, but I can't keep someone who disrespects others in my establishment." Tears blurred her vision as she gathered her belongings, humiliated and broken. She had lost everything, all because of her pride and her greed. Lara returned to her empty apartment, her world collapsing around her. She replayed Dapo's words in her mind, the sting of his disappointment cutting deep. For the first time, she reflected on her choices, the people she'd used, the opportunities she'd squandered, and the one person who had genuinely cared for her that she had pushed away. Weeks turned into months, and finding another job became impossible. Word had spread, and her reputation was ruined. Eventually, Lara found a position at a modest, humble restaurant on the outskirts of town. The pay was a fraction of what she had earned at Lara's place, but she accepted it without complaint, working diligently and treating her colleagues with newfound respect. Over time, she grew to appreciate her job, finding satisfaction in honest work. Dapo's words stayed with her, a reminder of her past mistakes and a beacon guiding her through her journey of redemption. If you enjoyed this story, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, tell us what you think about this story in the comments section. See you in our next video.